Today on the Star Trek Critic, the first appearance of the Cardassians, bad guys with terrible neck ridges, in The Wounded. As usual, points will be taken for each error, and my commentary sometimes has nothing to do with what went on in the show. This episode starts with Picard Maneuver number 1. Jean-Luc starts the show by telling big fish stories like the pompous ass that he is. The Chief of Security shows concern, and Deanna blows him off by saying there are allies. But they are not allies. They're just at a truce, so minus the first point. Worf is thinking, damn, with Wesley gone, they don't listen to me now. What's up with that? The next point is lost for Chief O'Brien not knowing his Japanese wife likes to serve Japanese food. They've probably known each other for about a year now and would have already had this conversation. O'Brien has been doing some thinking and he just realized he is not a fish. Keiko is now jealous of her mother-in-law who cooked real food. Ironically, she's idolizing the idea of a mother in the kitchen. O'Brien states the obvious.
Something's wrong.
Keiko calls a red alert. Isn't that the Bridges job? Worf says I number 1. This is the first time you see a Cardassian warship, and 1 point lost for a stupid helmet design. Thank goodness you never see it again. Gulma Set politely introduces himself. Picard is thinking, aren't you in command of Terek Nor? While Data is thinking, aren't you a gambler in San Francisco's past? Well, Worf is thinking, didn't you eat somebody the last time you were on the ship? And Riker's thinking, I thought you were a Romulan. It turns out a Federation ship attacked a Cardassian base, and Picard's like, I'll get back to you. Opening credits 6 minutes into the show, so minus 1 point. Captain Maxwell of the Starship Phoenix has decided to go on silent running with Huey, Dewey, and Louie. Admiral Hayden says, Captain Picard, if you screw up, I'll have your head on a platter. Worf is right again. The Klingons had a security detail assigned to them. Picard is incorrect, so minus 1 point. Worf says, I number 2. Picard says, I want this show to be very boring today. Deanna's like, yeah, that's not gonna happen or we'll get cancelled. Here come the Cardassians. This is Gulma Set. This is his brother Glenn. This is his other brother Glenn. Deanna's like, I heard that, but I only have 4 lines in this episode, so minus 1 point. Gates McFadden isn't in the show at all, so minus 1 point. And don't tell me it's because she's pregnant, because that's sexist. 1 point lost for Geordi having less than 5 lines. And don't tell me it's because he's pregnant too, because that's still sexist. 1 point lost for the captain's log talking down to the audience like we forgot everything during the commercial break. The bridge crew is thinking, why do the Cardassians look like they got spoons on their foreheads? And why do they have uniforms with matching spoons? O'Brien's ready for a fight. It's not like they're stereotyping Irish in this episode at all. That would be racial profiling, wouldn't it? Why do Cardassians stand with their back to the elevator door? That's just weird. So pretty much it's O'Brien's role in Star Trek to pick a fight with everybody he comes into contact with. Gulma Set wants Starfleet secrets. Picard says, no. Keiko calls O'Brien the second baseman. I don't think Keiko likes potato casserole. Everybody on the Rutledge used to sing this Irish song. Did you ever get the impression that everybody on the Rutledge was Irish? Since O'Brien isn't a member of the main cast, he gets all the roles where somebody's prejudiced. Keiko says, how do you feel about the Cardassians? O'Brien's like, I feel fine. And she's like, yeah, you're full of shit. 1 point lost here. They are light years away. They would not have that accurate of a visual. Here is foreshadowing. The Enterprise can tell what type of a ship it is. Gulma Set is a little concerned, and we'll see what happens later. Worf says, I number 3. Gulma Set says, come on, let me have the code. 1 point is lost here. They'd only give the Cardassians information so they can intercept the Phoenix, not disable it. And 1 point lost for not contacting the Cardassian ship at all. Now you get to watch a video game with 1990s graphics. 1 point lost here. If they're in such a hurry to intercept the Phoenix, why are they traveling at warp 4 and not warp 9 to begin with? Picard talks to Chief O'Brien. He says, I want to talk to you. Ben Waxwell, he must be quite the man, isn't he? And Chief O'Brien's like, are you going to ask him out, sir? O'Brien says, I've served with the 2 finest captains in Starfleet. Picard's like, wow, you're a total ass kisser. You're probably going to get your own show next. O'Brien says, you can't trust Cardassians. They're always up to something. There's no way I would ever want to be near them again. Picard says, you know, Paramount just offered you a 7-year contract and a buttload of money to work right next door to them. O'Brien says, oh hell yeah, I'm off to Deep Space Nine. See you later. Picard acknowledges his own existence. Picard is convinced Maxwell is out for revenge. Minus 1 point here because there's more than one type of ale. O'Brien and Glendaro make up. Glendaro acknowledges his own existence. This is a good talk of what really happens on the front lines and how it affects the people there. This is foreshadowing it again. Cardassians naturally think that these outposts are launching places for attacks. O'Brien was hiding with the women and children. What you don't learn is why he didn't have a phaser to begin with, or maybe he lost it. The talk ends with O'Brien saying, "It's not you I hate. I hate the fact the only reason I have a bigger part on the show now is because that bratty little kid quit." 1 point is lost for a single set of doors on the turbolift. 1 point lost for Worf taking him all the way up to the bridge from deck 35. Riker says, "Look out, Captain. He might be a hologram of Captain Rice again and turn into one of those probes." The Cardassian is sent to his room without dinner. Gul Macet tells Worf to go with him. Shouldn't that be Picard's job? Gul Macet assures Picard that Glenn Tella will get a good ass whipping later. Picard says, "Go for it, whip that little bastard." Gul Macet says he is a peaceful person, but Picard's like, "You're full of shit." According to the two star dates, only about 16 hours have passed, and that's not enough time, so minus 1 point. When the designers were thinking, what should the Phoenix look like, somebody suggested, let's just step on the Enterprise. Maxwell says, "Thanks for killing all the Borg, but it was pretty stupid of you to not take that promotion." Now Maxwell foreshadows by saying O'Brien's going to come up with an idea to beam through his shields. Now another Irish comment. That's racial profiling. Maxwell sits down and Picard tells it like it is.
You're bust.
Maxwell says that science station is a military base for an attack. Where have I heard that before? Maxwell says, "Picard, you let out a fart, didn't you? Did you ever notice his body language and mannerisms is a lot like Lore's?" And he does Picard maneuver number 2. Picard calls him the left fielder.
The left fielder's name. Why?
Picard accuses him of revenge. Maxwell says, "Let's go down in the history books together." Picard sends him back to the Phoenix. He says the other option is to tow the ship, but in reality, the first officer would have taken control. Worf says, "I number 4." Picard looks out the window. He does that a lot in the last 4 seasons. 1 point lost for the captain's log talking down to the audience like we forgot everything during the commercials. Worf says, "I number 5."
Ay, caramba!
The Phoenix peels out. Picard says, "What kind of a ship do you think that is?" Gul Macet says, "It's probably a supply ship going to a research station." Where have we heard that before? The ensign says, "I number 6." Worf says, "I number 7." Picard says, "What about the Cardassians?" But Data says, "No sir, it's the Cardassians." And here it is. The small supply ship is running a subspace field so you can't see what's inside. Did they get an email from Gul Macet just a few hours ago? O'Brien says, "I number 8." This is Picard maneuver number 3. The standoff begins. Maxwell says, "Yeah, they got me at Shawshank, but they're not going to get me this time." 1 point lost for the visible boom mic in the reflection. Another point lost. There is no way you can beam through that small of a gap within that shield. That even surprised Maxwell. And where is the crew of the Phoenix during all of this? Maxwell is having his meltdown. It turns out the loss of his family did get to him. Of course, Maxwell did make a surprise attack on a manned outpost, and it turns out the first baseman never had the chance to grow up. The first baseman always hung around O'Brien like a puppy, and they called him Stompy, Will Caden. It turns out it was Stompy that always sung the Irish song on the Rutledge. But with this, you get the impression that everyone on the Rutledge was Irish and wanted a good fight. Isn't that profiling? Maxwell says, "I really screwed the pooch on this one, didn't I?" And Chief O'Brien says, "Yeah, you really did." O'Brien says, "This really sucked, but I liked him." Now, why is Gul Macet saying this about Maxwell? He hopes that Maxwell's going to get the same ass whooping that Glendaro's going to get. Here is where Picard earns his paycheck. This was an excellent verbal ass whooping that Picard gave to Gul Macet. Unfortunately, due to copyright claims, I can't play it here, but it was a great ending for this episode. So, who were the Cardassians? The late John Hancock was on Airplane, Houston Nights, and Hill Street Blues, along with 80 more screen credits. Unfortunately, a heart attack took him at an early age. Time Winters was Glendaro with 166 screen credits, including Babylon 5, Scrubs, and General Hospital. Marco Rodriguez has 137 screen credits, 2 with TNG, also T.J. Hooker, Sliders, and MacGyver. Mark Alimo did a lot of off-Broadway, and 100 screen credits including T.J. Hooker, The Incredible Hulk, Knight Rider, and The Greatest American Hero, and of course he will be back as the villain Gul Dukat on Deep Space Nine, minus the facial hair. Bob Gunton served in Vietnam. He has played Nixon, Woodrow Wilson, Franklin Roosevelt, and Harry S. Truman, along with 140 other screen credits. The Wounded, an excellent episode that shows you how war really sucks. It can really take its toll on some people, gets a score of 80. Thanks for watching. Be sure to leave comments below and click that like button, the share button, that subscribe button, and I'll see you again next week.